Okay, media, so rest in peace. Really very painful, very touching moment here. As I said earlier, we are having our guest, Mr. Wale Oloko, public policy analyst. Let's get your view. How did you receive the news of the crash?
Well, I think I want to pay my condolence to the president, the military, and the family of the deceased. Like you said, let me also join you. May the souls of the departed rest in peace.
Amen.
And may God comfort the family.
Amen.
Really unfortunate, as usual, you know, when you receive text messages and all those WhatsApp messages, I first of all ignored it. I said no, the usual social media, fake news and so on and so forth. But when this happened, what you do is try and tune the reliable channels. And then the news started coming in. It was shocking. Very unfortunate.
Okay, now, many persons are looking at these. Let's get your overall view. We are having a second crash in a short while. It's not too much.
In fact, that's the third one. The fourth one that happened was the third one.
Third one is Sambisa.
The first one happened in February when the officers going to Mina. That was when it happened. And the second, where the two officers flying the
Sambisa.
Alpha jet. No, I think Kainji area when they ejected, and this one happened.
There's one that happened in Sambisa.
So you find that accidents would normally happen. It will give cause for concern, but unfortunately, we are not going to be able to get the roots of the incident. Luckily, the Air Force has invited the Accident Investigation Bureau to look at what happened. But don't forget again, accidents will happen as a result of human error, vagaries of nature, like weather, and then equipment malfunction. But this particular one and the past ones, we are not sure, but it gives cause for concern. But of course, let us not be hysterical. Let us just allow the investigations to be carried out and then wait for the outcome. Yeah, gives cause for concern.
But sometimes many are wondering, the officers we're losing, some of our finest here, many are asking if is giving cause for concern. Since we had some of this crash, why haven't we been able to tackle it quickly until we get to a point where it claimed the army chief, the nation #1 army officer?
Well, you know, we are sitting here with the benefit of hindsight. But you are not going to prevent accidents from happening. What we can do is to say, well, we've had enough of this.
Good.
Let us now put measures in place. And the only common denominator is the accident that happened in February and the one of Friday, the same type of aircraft. Then
almost the same number.
It said the 315 Kingfisher, 315, and this one.
The same number of persons.
So you discover that. Do we need to ground? Normally, when you have this kind of accident with civilian aircraft, they will ground all those aircraft and then take necessary measures. But I didn't hear that when that happened in February. But now it's happened. I want to believe that the Air Force will do what is necessary.
Are you sure? Are you sure they would be, or you should be telling them to do it? Because the other ones, we never need to get to a point where the army chief will be involved. When those ones died, we all had everything and everybody go. But now, this one now, like what you said, if it had been the conventional civilian aircraft, the aviation minister would have briefed that very day, issuing a statement asking those kind of airfly, Boeing 737 MAX or 747 MAX not to fly again, not to enter Nigerian airspace, not to even take off. Anyone on the ground should remain. Then every other group will be briefing, CSO, NGO. Now, this is the second one. And what you raised is what many people are asking. Why don't we take decision swiftly? Is it because it's the military? Because this one now, Nigerians are paying, the military is paying.
You have said it. You have standard operating procedures for civilian flights and for military flights.
But I thought they are all under aviation. And the same lives are all involved.
But don't forget that the aircraft was actually going to the Air Force base before it diverted to the Kaduna International Airport. So they will need to follow certain protocols. We are not sure whether they're going to do it or they did it then and carry out the investigation and they now allow those flights. Again, don't forget that we do not have many aircraft in the services of the Nigerian Air Force.
Even if we have just 44, shouldn't kill any of us.
Yes, thank God we don't that. But we cannot, because there was an accident in February. We should grant all the aircraft. I'm just assuming now.
No, but they can all go for a D check.
That is what we are saying. Perhaps it happened. We are not in a position to know. So we should give them that benefit of the doubt.
But we're in a position to also challenge whoever is in charge of maintenance there, because you can't claim my army chief and I keep quiet.
No, I'm not sure deliberately somebody will want to kill the army chief.
But
and that's why we said that it happened, it's an accident, and that's why we call it an accident.
But somehow, when we had a problem with the Boeing, I think Boeing 737 MAX,
yeah.
Everyone rushed to say, look, there's something wrong with that. We must grind those planes. Everyone said, quickly put the plane down. The US, everybody, the countries across, even Nigeria had this issue a statement quickly. It shouldn't come in, it shouldn't fly in, it shouldn't. Everyone was quickly, let's put the plane down. We've got 2 accidents, 2 or 3, and we need to study the components of the plane. How come they nosedive and crash hitting the ground? How come we have all of this problem?
That's what I'm saying.
But for this one now, because it is military, it appears we are all keeping quiet. We are all careful.
No, apart from the fact that we are all careful, we are mourning. And that is why all flags are now flying at half-mast.
Fine.
And that is why I feel that we should allow the families, to bear the pain, and then allow them to gradually overcome the difficulties, so that we don't start raising issues. But what we do know is that after this incident, what you are suggesting, what many people are talking about, will come up, and then they will discuss it.
But sir, when the Boeing issue became a problem, nobody allowed any family to grieve. That day in the evening, the world started briefing. Countries in the evening, as the plane crashed, by that evening, countries across the world, the families were mourning, but everyone was keeping safe. Shut down, Nigeria was briefing. Why did we not wait for...
That's what I'm saying. The standard operating procedure is quite different. It's quite different. But what I feel that the Air Force people, they have already release a press statement that we are going to carry out investigation, and AIB has been invited to follow the
They must investigate before.
Of course,
they have the black box. So you must go and check. Now with this, as painful as it is, and you see the families coming out quickly from this pain, particularly the one that pained me most, the just newly wedded. Although everyone tend to look at the army chief, the very big name makes the news, but the pilot just wedded 2 months ago. The co-pilot finishes engagement, and somebody's waiting. Maybe his card is almost out. They're waiting for dates or whatever. Lot painful.
Yeah. You are very right. It's painful, no doubt about that. And I feel that we should all give consideration, actually, to having to pray and having thoughts for the families, because when you press men will have left the whole place, they are the ones that will bear the loss. The next 10 years, 15 years, some will never recover. But at the end of the day, good enough. You can imagine the way and manner the burial took place. It happened on a Friday. The burial was done on a Saturday, and that is also putting an end, for closure, so to say. But the problem is that at the end of the day, we hope that we are not going to have this kind of calamity. But that does not mean that we are not going to have an accident again. No. And don't forget, it is important that, like you suggested earlier, that we now put measures in place so that we don't have a reoccurrence. And that is the most important. And that's a lesson we can take away from what happened on Friday. But then you cannot prevent...
Are we learning very fast?
You cannot prevent accidents, Mr. Otta.
I know.
You cannot.
But
then in our own case, if it becomes recurrent, then you now have a problem.
Accident, but we can't stop accident. Let me use that language. And that means accident must always happen.
It will happen. And that's why it's called an accident.
Human being exists. These are machines. We can have machine error. But no matter what the error is going forward here, we are looking at where we can make it minimal, or where we can even make it a point where we even have engine failure, the plane can land safely.
Yeah, it's possible.
But don't you think it's also somewhat germane? I don't know the make of the plane, but the question someone will ask in an advent like this, why don't we have people ejecting very quickly with parachute?
Well, no, the fighter planes, you can do that. But what with this kind of aircraft? And that was why the one that happened in Kainji, the pilot ejected, but unfortunately, it ended in that kind of mishap that they died. So it's an unfortunate situation. And the question we should be asking, and we should ask government to tell us is, please let us not have a repeat, not 3-4 accidents within 90 days. I'm sure everybody is worried. Let us be. Let us know that everybody is worried. But to the extent that the impact will be on the fight against insecurity.
That's what I was going to. What impact will it have?
With due respect to the lives of those that we lost. You know, there is a saying. I don't know whether it's a standard Nigerian saying or a common saying. They said, soldier go, soldier come. Barak remain. So whether you have the loss of the chief of army staff or the loss of anybody at all, even the president of a country, there will always be people that will step in and continue with that. The only unfortunate part of it is that even the most important position in Nigeria today is that of the presidency. We have a deputy or a vice president. Unfortunately, in the military setup, there's nothing like that. So now we'll be scrambling. There's nothing like second in command in the military. You only have officers and rank the way they join.
And someone very closer.
But then that is not automatic. You understand what I mean? It's not automatic that you step in. No, it's different. Because you need to have some measures in place, like capacity, merit, spread, federal character, and so on and so forth. But whereas if you have a deputy chief, it's automatic. Like vice president, you step in automatically. But of course, we are not talking about that now. But what is important is that we should look at it.
We must talk about that. Sir, because
we should look at it.
Somebody was saying we shouldn't talk about that. But may the good soul of the army chief rest in peace with his entourage and those of the flight crew. But the fundamental fact is there must be someone that must command the army.
Yes, I'm sure somebody is there doing that. Somebody is actually at headquarters taking control right now. Perhaps in the interim. And until I'm sure after the mourning period, between now and Wednesday, when the flag will be restored back, they're thinking of doing that. I hope it will not take us another 3 months, like the Minister of Police Affairs said at that time, that we are retaining the IG for for this while, to be able to enable us to choose capable IG. I hope we will not get to that extent that we have to wait until then. But the fight against insecurity must continue. There's terrorism, there's banditry, there's secession agitations, and then there's also the herdsmen and the farmers classes. We cannot continue without having somebody in place. But don't forget that the other services are also there. The security agencies and institutions are also working. So it's not as if once the head of the army or head of any of the services is gone, then nothing is happening. No, I can assure you that people are even fighting in Zambia as we're talking. It's possible that people are fighting elsewhere and are engaging some bandits in some other places. So it's not that it will stop. No, it will not stop. It will continue. It's just that you need that to be able to give morale to the service that, okay, our chief is gone, another chief is there, and we pay loyalty to that chief.
Okay, let's do a little focus on the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tahiru. How will you assess his performance? He appears to have done so well in a very short time.
Well, the history, what I will only say that history will be kind to him. To the extent that you now have a kind of synergy among the services between the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, and the CDS coming together, going everywhere, even moving out of the country to talk to our neighboring countries, to talk to them about the need to be able to engage them in the fight against terrorism and a lot of insecurity. But 3 months actually is, or 4 or 5 months is rather too short in anybody's life to be able to assess the performance. We should be a bit hesitant to make this judgment.
But within the short time of when he stayed, even if it is 3, 4, 5 days, you're still around. You're going to be here for about a 30 minutes interview, but people are going to assess you for 30 minutes speech.
Yes, they should be able to do that.
Some people assess you for life.
Yes,
with this speech.
It's possible. Some people to do that because if you say you're an analyst, you're a commentator, you should be able to do ABCD. But in the issue of security, there is no how you can do that without talking about the performance of other services that are supporting the army. Otherwise, yesterday they said something happened again in Zamfara State. And in the last few months, you find activities in Imo State. The attack on the correctional services, the attack on the police formations, and so on and so forth. And this has been happening. So it's a bit difficult, and I'm sure if the man were to be alive today, we will not ask that we should judge him, but we will allow people to do that later, not now that we are still fighting security. But at the end of the day, I think it's better we just allow his soul to rest in peace. You know?
Okay, when we look at all of this now, the issue of the selection of a new army chief, some, what you raised there, if I can ask you for your opinion, some are saying it ought to have been the very day he passed on, that somebody should have been announced immediately to actually step in. Some are saying, no, let's wait until after the mourning period before we announce the new army chief. And some are saying it can even take longer. Which of them do you belong? You
mean as a commentator, as my personal opinion?
You are giving us your opinion.
No. I think we should allow the soul of the man to rest, and allow the flag to be restored, and by then we can now talk about nomination of chief of army staff, the new chief of army staff. I think that's just to give honor. No, that's what I'm saying. Just to give honor. No, just to give honor to.
I know when President Yar'Adua died, while they were trying to take his corpse out of the villa for Katsina, Goodluck was being sworn in immediately at the same time.
You are right, Mr. Ta. But you are talking about a deputy already there, or a vice that's already there. You have President Professor Oshibajo. Now, if anything happens to anybody, it's automatic because there is no vacuum. You cannot create a vacuum. In our own case, we are talking about the chief of army staff, whereas people are still working. People are performing.
So we can
just take 3-4 days. That's not too long a time to allow the president to choose. And that will even allow the president to be able to say, okay, fine. We have people talking about federal character. You understand? That can we now use this opportunity to now appoint somebody who has the capacity, who merits the position, and who can pick from other geopolitical zones. Don't forget, there's a particular zone that complain about security issues being taken without the presence of anybody from that side. The government can use this opportunity to now say, okay, fine, let us pick somebody. But of course, somebody will now tell you that, how can you have agitation of secession and you now appoint somebody from that? But we are all Nigerians.
It's all about planning.
It's all about planning, yeah.
Okay, if you're just joining us, the program is this morning on ITV, and we have been speaking with Mr. Wale Oloko, our public policy analyst here, and we are looking at the demise of Army Chief and others, and the fight against insurgency, and hoping that we would be coming out. Now, some of the messages that poured in. The president of Niger had issued a statement. I just had called the Nigerian president to actually condole. And one thing he said is, if Atairo and others would have stayed for long, he's sure that they would have seen the end of Boko Haram and other issues of banditry around. Do you trust that statement?
Seriously, I think the fight against insecurity and terrorism will likely, let me be cautious about what I'm saying, will likely go beyond the administration of the present regime. What I'm saying is, why is this? Don't forget that the crisis of 9/11 in the US and the issue of Afghanistan still on. Because as you are getting rid of some people, you already have people who have already been radicalized to now take over, number one. Number two, you're talking about a place where unemployment is almost at 60%, if not more. You're talking about where children out of school almost at 50%. We're talking about a place that relies on allocation coming from the center. So, and again, just last week, they talked about the death of the Boko Haram. Check it out. But are we sure that the man is dead? Because they have already announced his death many times. But if this happens, then we are now going to take the opportunity to now say, okay, fine, let us cut the head of the snake. And the snake is dead. Now we are going to be faced with the fight against ISWAP, no longer Boko Haram. And that is even more dangerous. In the case of Cheka, he's already been decimated. His place have already been taken. There will already be crisis within Boko Haram. But now you are going to have ISWAP that is even more dangerous than Boko Haram. And that is why I feel it's very optimistic, yes, to think about, well, we'll be able to end it. But another dimension is the one we are bringing. Because these people, the so-called terrorists, the so-called extremists, went to Sambisa, according to reports, to now fight it out with the head of Boko Haram.
But they've always been there. Some of them are even a breakaway faction from Boko Haram.
That is what we're saying. If what you are saying that if SWAP is now going to say, okay, fine, we are now in control, and they are now the ones we assume that are going around the country creating problems.
Can't we overrun them?
We have the capacity. The Nigerian army has the capacity. But what we need to now have is overwhelming capacity. When you are fighting an opponent, you need to have overwhelming capacity in terms of personnel, in terms of logistics, in terms of weapons and ammunition. You need to show that. But you know, we have still been talking about Super Tucano coming in or not. We have been promised by July we're going to take delivery of 6 of those aircraft. And this one, we are talking about the latest gunship that can be deployed. So that is going to now help the military and the armed forces to go beyond the present level they have. But and unfortunately, we are losing some of the aircraft again.
But before the army chief died, most of the issues when he had cause to speak is to give the men some heavy morale boost. Whenever he went around, actually boost the morale of his men, tell them to please be up to speed, that the country must defeat Boko Haram. Whenever they captured very strategic town, he goes there. We see him on television urging them to please push forward and ensure that the insurgents suffer severely. But in the midst of all of this, he still talked about the fact that we need to fund the armed forces, just Navy, Army, Air Force. Maybe we can add the police, civil defense, DSS, fund them adequately to ensure that we combat crime. Do you see this fund coming?
You have a pot, just like this table. And it's from this pot we are going to share out to states, to security, and so on and so forth. But of course, you need to have security first before you start talking about even states and all those. But you cannot give more than what you have. And the question people are asking, how about those funds you have received in the past? What have they done with those funds? Those are questions that we need to ask. But from now on, we should be able to say, okay, fine, there's a need for the military or the armed forces to be adequately funded. But then there must be responsibility. There must be accountability. And that is the way to go. But whether you go around the officers boosting morale, you need equipment. And it's important that you have them. And like it's very common, and as you know very well, that you can't buy this thing off the shelf. You need to pay in advance for it to be purchased, to be produced. And this money is not there. Don't forget again that we are likely to have little crisis, if not next month or 2 months' time, when we're going to adjust the price of gasoline. And that will create internal problems again for the country. So how do you now balance that? So where are you going to get the money? Where are you going to have the money to be able to pay and continue to pay to subsidize gasoline and again fund the military and the armed forces? So it's catch-22. You win it or you lose it. But the government are saying
that we shouldn't subsidize any further, the way countries around us are doing.
But what you are saying is you are going to create instability. It's going to inflation. People will complain. It will create unemployment again, and it's like cyclical. You remove this, you create unemployment. People will now go to armed robbery, they go to treason, terrorism, extremism, and so on and so forth. Then you now go back and say the people should try. So it's going to be difficult. So there must be a balance. And the balance is, let us look at the best we can do and how we can give the military and what we can give the armed forces, and what again we can do to the extent that it is possible for us to be able to have a peaceful environment. And that's just it.
So you're sure that for now we appear to be on the right path, but somehow slowly?
I think we are doing to some extent, what the capacity can carry. But what we should be careful of is able to say, okay, fine, you are going to receive $5 billion, and let us know at the end of the day what you are going to do or what you have done with the $5 billion.
Okay, finally, before I let you go, if you are to address the soldiers now that they've lost their commanding officer, what will you be telling them?
Keep hope alive. There is the need for us to fight this war and win the war and win the battle, just to honor the lives of those that died on Friday. And the country will continue. And the best we can do is to say, fine, these people didn't die in vain. And we're going to continue the fight, and we're going to win the battle. That's it. But unfortunately, the fact remains that it's going to be some time for us to be able to get. It's not going to happen tomorrow or next year. I don't think so.
Okay, let's hope that it happens quickly.
Quickly, yeah.
Maybe somehow we'll pray for miracle. Thank you very much, Mr. Wale Oloko, public policy analyst here, speaking on the demise of the Army Chief and others, and how it affects the fight against insurgency. Thanks for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
Have a wonderful and a splendid working week ahead.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay, we take a break now. When we return from the break, we will be looking at other critical national issues as increasing attacks on INEC facilities in the southeastern part of the country may likely be jeopardizing the general election for 2023 after this break.